it's a really collaborative space. It sometimes it feels like I'm away at summer camp, like when I'm in my group chats, because it's like so many different people like interacting all the time, and like we all just like really, really get along, and it feels really beautiful.
Hi everyone, it's Joy and Salimi once again on yet another episode of NewForum, and we're always excited to bring you inspiring and brilliant guests on our podcast. We are powered by NewCoin Foundation and focus on fostering the expansion of decentralized social applications, also known as Social 3.0, by forming an ecosystem and a community of visionaries, creators, and investors to spark conversations on the topics of crypto, the metaverse, NFTs, and everything Web3.
And on this episode of NewForum, we're super honored to have Princesa7. Princesa7 is a multidisciplinary artist and founding member of Protein. We'll be chatting about Web3 communities, their upcoming debut Web2 mixtape called Princesa_speaking.zip, their other exciting projects, and their experience with being part of Protein. We will also talk about their wellness and community care initiative called Lilia, which seeks to bridge the gaps between spirituality, wellness, and social impact, and how that applies to Web3 culture. Hey, Princesa, we're super excited to have you on this episode today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me and for that lovely introduction.
Tell us about your Web3 story. How did you get into the Web3 space, and how did your NFT journey begin?
So basically, my mentor has a podcast called Swope So Dope. And so I was listening to her podcast one day, and like I kind of just found that she resonated with me in a way that I couldn't describe. We've had like very similar experiences. And so I went on her website, and she had a mentorship program that was going on. And basically, it felt like it was a shot in the dark when I applied to her mentorship program, specifically because she said she was accepting applications, but she wasn't taking on any new mentees. And like it just so happened that like she decided to accept me anyway. And so we had like monthly calls, and she kind of just helped me to get myself on track as like a freelance like contracting artist. And like she gave me a lot of really great advice, but eventually she decided to end the program because specifically she had gotten into NFTs, and it was like taking up like all of her time. And so she said she was just like ready for this new chapter. So in our final like official mentee call, she basically onboarded me. Like she described to me like what NFTs were and how the community was for her and the things that she was doing. And after that, I found that this other person who I follow named Melanie, who founded the Blurred Lines community, she was somebody who I followed just as a musician because I knew she was an A&R, and like she had been retweeting all of these threads over the past like few years. I followed her since I think like 2014, 2015. But since then she had been posting threads about like artists who were up and coming, who like she really liked, and like she posted about the likes of like Cardi B and Khalid, like people who like really made it. And so as an A&R, like I saw that she was very, very adept, very good at her job, and I really respected her. So she also got into NFTs, like maybe not around the same time, but I was paying attention to NFTs specifically because Elise had told me about them. And Melanie was posting a lot of onboarding information. Like she posted this one article that was like the first, my first like piece of research that I did independently, and it was called like 2020 a social tokens year in review. And like at that point I didn't know what social tokens were, but she said read this and then basically come join our Discord community called Blurred Lines, where she was posting jobs and like informative pieces about hackathons and stuff like that. Like it's a really, really cool Discord server. And so that was the first one that I joined, and I read this social tokens document where they talked about friends with benefits, the DAO, and they talked about catalog. And so those were the first two things that resonated with me. and I decided to just like keep an eye on these projects and figure it out. So after that, like there were these two online courses that Melanie posted about on her Discord server. One of them was called the Excellence Program, and it was through Diddy's, like his corporation in partnership with Endeavor. And basically it was just an online course that you take voluntarily, and they taught us about like the ins and outs of each like factor of the entertainment industry. Like we had workshops every day for like a few weeks, and we learned about the fashion industry, we learned about television and film, we learned about the recording academy. And so I basically was able to get, without like having to experience it myself through like a job as an intern, like, or an assistant or something like that, I basically got like insider information about kind of how to break into this industry and like what people are looking for and what it takes to sort of make it. And so this was kind of like the Web 2 part of the equation, that helped me with my own like artistry and learning how to just, like learning how to just navigate within Web 2. And so there was that part that Melanie posted, that helped me from her Discord server. And then the other thing that she posted was about Zoratopia with Latasha. And so I started to attend Zoratopia, and Latasha was onboarding us into NFTs specifically as musicians. And she and I just kind of clicked. I clicked with a lot of other people, and she really started it from there. Like Latasha started to introduce us to like a bunch of amazing people within Web3, and it was just really, really nice. So those three people kind of guided me along the way.
I'm wondering, like, what is your experience with like music NFTs, like especially like dropping music NFTs, and what have you learned from that experience of knowing all of these, let's say, Web2 industries? Like, what have you learned from being onboarded to that?
I've learned so much. Like the music NFT community, it might not be tight knit across the board, but at the very least, like within the circle of like Latasha and Iman and people like Sassy, who like have gotten jobs like in Web3 full time, they all have like done so much for me as an independent artist. And like what I will say about the music NFT community that I'm a part of is a lot of us have similar intentions to kind of financially liberate ourselves and other independent artists, and I feel like we're trying to like be the change. So I'm learning so much about personal responsibility when it comes to artistry, and personal responsibility as independent artists when it comes to like working with my friends and figuring out like how to factor in like not only what I need, but like what the engineer needs, or what if I have a music video, what the cinema or the videographer needs, and the costumes designer. And just like NFTs have given a lot of people kind of the freedom of raising a budget with people who support their artwork, instead of kind of having to go and apply for grants and go and do odd jobs and stuff like that. And it like really, really leaves a lot of time to make the kind of music that we envision. But it's a really collaborative space. It sometimes it feels like I'm away at summer camp, like when I'm in my group chats, because it's like so many different people like interacting all the time, and like we all just like really, really get along, and it feels really beautiful.
Yeah, that's exactly why I also jumped onto that space, because I feel like was really welcoming, and it seemed like a lot of musicians and producers were really interested in the Web3 space. So I'm glad you're having that experience, and I'm glad that these people can build these communities.
Yeah, me too.
You are a founding member of the Protein DAO and of Protein, yeah. And I'm curious to know, like, how has it been like, and what do you think about like DAO structures, and how can they support like creators or even like musicians and NFT artists?
Oh my gosh, my experience with Protein it's been very dynamic. Like it's been overall very positive. And basically the nature of like working with a DAO, I've learned through my work with Protein, which is that like there's the time zone differences, there's like working with somebody who does their position part-time. So like there's the question of accessibility of people, and like when somebody has like the availability to answer your question regardless of how urgent it is to you. And there's the question of like this is the first time maybe that the DAO is doing something like I'm doing an independent like researching contractor project with them, and so like this is the first time they're doing something like that. And so like the hiccups along the way, like it really, like you said, it is a true test of character how every individual person deals with these like hiccups in a DAO, because specifically the reason is that we've never done this, and like we as a community, like the people who founded the DAO, like specifically Protein as like an organization itself within Web 2, like they haven't done this Web 3 DAO stuff before. Just like as a founding member, I haven't ever like worked with a DAO before either. And so it is a bunch of firsts, and that comes with a certain level of patience, which is like I feel like the main lesson, because it's like all of the beauty that comes with it. I can't let like something that we can basically just communicate through, I can't let that kind of tarnish my view of like the work that we're doing and the mission overall. So I feel like it's teaching me a lot about myself and about how to like collaborate, especially internationally.
So you're part of Friends with Benefits. You touched a bit on the DAO side of things, but how can a DAO help creators find their projects and finance their projects, or come up with interesting NFT ideas? Like, what is your experience with that?
That's a great question. And my experience with Friends with Benefits would probably better help me to answer this specific question that y'all have, because I joined FWB, which is like a paid kind of social tokens DAO. Like you have to pay to get in there. But I was lucky enough to be an inaugural fellow. So basically they kind of paid me to join based on like my application and the application of about like 39 other individuals who they chose to be in it. And like even then, like we were kind of helping them, since we were the first fellows, we were kind of helping them to like structure the program for future fellows. And like essentially what they did, what the meat of the fellowship was that we had to do a project with them, and a lot of us did NFTs, and so they essentially funded those NFTs. But like as like creatives, them funding those NFTs also means that like when we get paid from those NFTs, like when people do collect our NFTs, that means that like we get paid more for our art, you know what I mean? So like not only did they give us like free entry into their DAO, but they also, like for me as a musician, like they gave us a kind of skip the line for catalog, because they have like a partnership with catalog. And so like they introduced us to like the people who run catalog, and just like it felt so good. And as a DAO, like with so much funding, like 'cause they are a really huge DAO, it was really, really like rewarding and really gratifying to see them doing work that like benefits me as an independent artist, specifically because like I've dealt with like the issue of being low income for a while, like throughout my childhood and up until my adulthood. It's been kind of a pattern. So like within Web 3, like I'm sure we all know, I'm sure we all feel it, that it's like sometimes those like wounds with like finances can come up, and it can be really triggering, like especially if someone's like struggling for bills and they see people selling their NFTs, and like nobody's, you know what I mean, nobody's collected theirs yet, and like they really, really need the money. It can be really hard. And so like the experience with like Friends with Benefits kind of showed me that like all I really have to do is kind of apply for these accelerator programs and apply for these grants and stuff, and like whatever opportunity is for me will be for me. And it just really taught me the benefit, not to like be corny and use a pun, but like it really taught me like the benefit of asking for what I need and like representing myself, especially, you know, as an independent artist, like without a manager or without like a formal manager. It can be challenging. It can be challenging, like no agent, to like find opportunities that are for me. And just like the community aspect then comes in, because it's like people are in group chats or people are in Discord servers, like sending each other back and forth life-changing opportunities. Like I found that fellowship again through Melanie's Discord server.
What is the thin line between this, you know, like the value of creating our work or creating art versus just making something just to make ends meet, you know, because it's really been associated with NFTs so much, right? There's this hype going around that. And I kind of felt a little bit like sensitive about the fact that maybe these people or these artists who are doing this, they might need the money, but like, where do we kind of like draw the line, you know, and not sort of end up getting into that hype economy concept?
I agree. There is such a fine line, and this is literally why I, like, on a personal level, decided to work in DAOs, because I was able to see, just like you said, like when I came into the community, I was able to see that it wasn't exactly sustainable to kind of wait for somebody, you know what I mean? Wait for somebody, and like you know, I have seen people who are trying to make ends meet, and like I've seen people who have like kind of bullied other people in their DMs, or like bullied people on the timeline, and like I agree with you completely that that is like not a sustainable like way to push an economy, especially because like most Web3 spaces that I've been in, at least, like we can all agree that like we'd like to do something new. We'd like to form like positive bonds and learn how to uplift each other. So yeah, I completely agree with you. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's sustainable to just be an NFT artist the way that like a lot of people have been able to make a living off of, say, trading PFPs. Like I would say that is more sustainable, and that requires a certain amount of capital and a certain amount of intuition. So again, it's not necessarily like the best kind of like primary source of income. And I feel like when I first got into the space, like the first bear market that I experienced was kind of a testament to that, because like we're all here, and like the newbies might be coming in when like everything is great and everything is booming, but like as a newbie, I could certainly tell there was something else like under the surface. There was something like looming that was making people like not want to like necessarily how can I say this, like not necessarily like warming up to me immediately, because it's kind of like a test of intuition, like is this person going to stick around when these like ETH prices drop? And you know, a lot of people didn't, and like it definitely changed. But after a few bear markets, I'm still here, so I definitely feel that bond that like everybody else, the bond that I was noticing with something like looming underneath of like these things could like, they could go up at any second now that we're in a bear market, but like when it's up, like it could drop at any second. Like this is just what like Web3 is like today. Like tomorrow could be totally different.
Especially the last weeks has been interesting to watch Twitter and what's going on in the space. And yeah, like you said, it's sometimes so, when you're there from like a personal point of view, you're like there watching all of these things like happen like in seconds. I want to give a shout out to everyone who is in Web3, because we are facing so many challenges within humanity and economy, and you know, like that's, and we are here out here trying to think long term and to use technology to actually build something. And it's not easy. I feel like we are having a hard challenge sometimes, but you know, we are trying.
I think that within the space there's so much potential, and we just have to stay strong and not like, you know, get discouraged. So it seems like we're talking about like almost like mental health right now and human experience within Web3. So then I think it's a perfect time for me to ask you about your wellness and community care initiative, I believe called Lilia, if I got it right. If you want to touch on a bit, because I know you seek to bridge the gaps between spirituality, wellness, and social impact. And I want to know how that like applies to Web3 culture, and maybe even some of these topics that Joyce sort of brought up.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is pronounced Lilia, and I'm kind of funny to me because like I changed my name to Princesa within like Web3. I use Princesa as a pen name, but like my government name is like notoriously challenging to pronounce. And so it makes sense that like I would choose a name for the initiative that is also equally hard to pronounce. Like it's just in my code or something, I guess. But all of that is to say, yeah, so Lilia, with Lilia, I seek to, like you said, like bridge the gaps between the worlds of social impact like community care and like mental health and wellness and all of that, specifically because like it is Pride Month, so I will get like historically accurate, but like back in like the civil rights era, they used to organize in churches. Like they used to have like activist organization in churches, and so spirituality and social impact were already kind of connected. Wellness is something that like has definitely been around for a while, but like is also something that like started to boom back in 2017 when I started to basically build the idea of Lilia. And so because of basically, I believe it was homophobia specifically, because of like the churches kind of ostracizing people who are gay and people who are trans, organization kind of stopped happening the same way that it used to happen in churches. And like churches became like, again, a very ostracizing community for like trans and gay and LGBTQIA activists. And so no longer were a lot of people able to organize in churches, specifically because of their own personal choices. And like now, like today, there are a few churches here and there who do support like avidly and expressively support LGBTQIA people. And so that kind of work is coming up back to the surface, especially with the wellness kind of lens added, because like somebody who is homophobic is not necessarily well. You know what I mean? That's not necessarily like the way of taking care of somebody and caring about somebody else's mental health and respecting other people. And so like when I first started to kind of make this idea, the world of wellness and the world of spirituality were kind of like with crystals and with like other like self-care items, they were kind of starting to join together. But I also noticed, like a lot of us, that like it was the fact that like wellness was a trending topic and spirituality was a trending topic, that like there were, you know, so many like astrologers, let's say on Twitter, who were scamming people, or like crystals that were unethically sourced. And so I also noticed that there was a need for that social impact kind of to be tied into it all together. And I don't know any word for that other than like community care and like caring about the people around us. And especially because like we all have different struggles that we're championing, and like we can be like-minded without like having all of the same opinions, you know what I mean? And so like basically when I started the initiative, I had the intention for us to like for it to become like kind of a collective of different like wellness providers putting on workshops, and eventually like having the funds through like our offerings to build a community center. And then once I got into Web3, I noticed that there were a lot of people who had similar missions. And there are, of course, there are a lot of people like trying to make a big buck or trying to make end meets in the NFT space and in the Web3 space. But there are also a lot of people who are figuring it out, who have also the intention to bring other people either into Web3 or to bring like the bounties of Web3 to people who like desperately do need that kind of help. Like I went to Denver and I saw that I went to ETH Denver, and there were a couple of DAOs I saw who were talking about helping out like people who are struggling, who are experiencing houselessness. And like that as like the larger goal is kind of what urged like people, like meeting people who have that as like their sort of end goal, people who are like doing the work here in order to raise money for causes and for people who are experiencing marginalization in ways that like not all of us in Web3 like are experiencing. I felt like it was my responsibility to kind of bring Lilia, which started out as like a specific to Chicago kind of service that I was providing for people in my community. And I figured it might help to sort of bring that into Web3 and turn it into a DAO so that I can, you know, like apply for funding in a way that like resonates with other people.
We're excited to see where you know, where you're gonna go with that. I just believe that when you have any initiative or you're advocating for something that has so much meaning, that is so needed, I really believe that it's gonna go far. And yeah, you gotta like our support. And we want more diversity, more inclusivity within Web3. So yeah, I want to say thank you so much, Princesa. This has been a really meaningful very warm conversation and quite insightful as well. And I'm wondering where our community members as well as listeners and audience can find you on your social platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So my username across all platforms is 7babyguava7, guava like the fruit. And so you can find me there everywhere. But I want to thank y'all for having me on here and thank y'all for like contributing to this awesome conversation and guiding me through and for being patient with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who tuned in today in this really wholesome conversation. And if you guys want to get more involved within our community, make sure to follow us also on Twitter and IG. We're NewForum_NCO and NewCoin. And we also have a Discord and Telegram group. And we're going to leave all the links as well as Princesa's links in the bio. And we hope you tune in the next time when we have another episode. And don't forget to like, subscribe. And yeah, thank you for tuning in today with us. Thank you, Salimi and Princesa.